Hey, hello.
Hi, Jerry.
Cheryl, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good, good. I
Great.
think are you ready for this?
I am.
It's funny. I just want to sit here and be quiet with you. You really have that thing about you. What's going on?
I don't know, Jerry. I have no idea. I don't know what's going on.
Like I don't even want to say anything. Just sit with you. And I've done a lot of interviews. I don't know how many, dozens or 100 or,
Hmm.
but I've never been in this type of a thing where I don't want to say anything. I hang
Yeah.
out with you.
Must be that Louisiana thing you were talking about,
I
huh?
don't know. I don't know.
Us Louisiana girls. That's what it is.
Yeah, maybe that's it. I ought to go. I went to New Orleans once. Just
Uh-huh.
once, yeah, just once in the 60s. I liked it.
Yeah. I think I went once too.
You went once.
Yes.
You lived there, but
I know.
you stayed a
I
few
live
years.
I live south of New Orleans, so
I went
yeah.
once to New Orleans.
I went a couple times, maybe. Yes, you know how it is when you live someplace and you figure, I'll get there, anytime. I live here, so
I know.
it's a big deal. Yeah, it's the same thing with me living close to DC. It's like, I'll see that stuff some other time, you know.
Yeah, yeah, right. I mean, and how often do you want to see? I mean, it's important to see the various monuments, I think, but I mean, how often
I know.
do you need to
Yeah.
see them? It's important to see them. Yeah, probably a
Yes.
couple times in your life, a few times, I think,
Certainly.
like a Grand Canyon or something.
Mm-hmm.
You ever been to the Grand Canyon or?
I have not.
Yeah,
No.
it's worth seeing.
Yeah, that's what I hear. Yeah.
I need to do some formal introduction. I mean, this interview is going by. I haven't done some kind of so I'm speaking to Cheryl Abram, and maybe just introduce yourself a little as far as where you live and what you do, and then we can get into your family and so on. Then we can get into some things.
Absolutely.
Even
Yeah.
even even
So.
though I'd rather just sit here and sit with you and look at you, but you know,
Right. So, yes, thanks, Jerry. My name is Cheryl Abram, and I live in Northern Virginia with my children. I work for the government. I've been here for I think I got to Northern Virginia in 2003. Yes, and I came here from Rhode Island. I really like it here. I love the work that I do, and yeah, I'm just here. That's about
yeah.
all there is to me.
Well, I mean, you're raising like four kids and working. That's, I mean, what more does anyone have to do,
Yeah,
really?
yeah, yeah.
Somehow you stumbled into this so-called non-dual realization or understanding, or
I did. I think literally stumbled onto it. Well, I was
now
thrown to it more.
I think we have to hear that story.
Hmm.
And maybe you can start with childhood. Did anything happen? Did you go to church a lot? Was religion a part of your upbringing? And did that prepare you, or prepare you in some way for what happened, do you think?
Hmm.
Can you address some of that?
Sure. Well, as I mentioned, I grew up in southern Louisiana, and I was part of uh, an uber religious Southern Baptist family. I mean, we went to church 6 days a week, and I loved it. I really, really loved it. I would cry if we didn't go to church,
You, you,
because I just love the feeling of.
the audio's breaking up a little. What did you say about you love the feeling, or I kind of broke
Yeah,
up?
I loved going to church, and I
Yeah.
would cry if we missed church.
Ah,
Because I love to sing, and I was in the choir. We always did stuff. I'm very, very smart. So any questions that they asked about the Bible, I knew the answer, of course. So
yeah.
church, I really, really did love church. Especially as I got older, like into junior high and high school, and things like that, because it made me feel special. I felt like I was one of God's chosen. So who wouldn't feel special about that? So I really did love that. And I had an awesome childhood. I really did. I grew up on a plantation. My aunts, uncles, my mom, they all had houses on the plantation. My grandfather, he was a farmer. I remember the animals that he had. He would go out hunting, and everything was just right there. It was called Pecan Grove. And because we had humongous pecan trees on the plantation, and I remember we would pick them and sell them on the side of the road. And I mean, it was great. I really had a fabulous, fabulous childhood. And there was really nothing that I can remember about it that I would say prepared me for non-duality. Or now that I look back on it, I see, well, maybe that's what that was all about. I mean, there's nothing that I could really remember, that would make me think that. Although there was one thing that happened. For a few years, I would see, I don't know if it would be men, or in my little child mind, it was in my imagination, but it would be like a good thing and a bad thing that I would see, and it like black and white or something like that, and it would scare me. But it was just in my imagination, but I didn't know what it was. And I remember not wanting to close my eyes because that's when I would see it. But it only lasted for a couple of years. I never knew what it was. And even right now, I can't explain what that was.
What age did that happen at? You said it lasted for a couple of years.
Yeah, maybe like eight and nine and 10, something like that. But it was nothing I could go to my mom and be like, Mom, this is what's happening. Because I couldn't explain it. I mean, I didn't know what was going on, right? But that was like the only thing. But it was great. So
okay, before you talk about leaving home, I just want to go back to that black and white. You mentioned men, and then you mentioned it once, and you didn't mention it again. Can you just elaborate on that?
I want to say that it was like the good guy and the bad guy. The good guy is dressed in white. The black guy is dressed the bad guy is dressed in black. So it was kind of like that. And then one was big and one was little. I don't know. It was just, they were total opposites of each other, like in every way.
Why were you afraid to see them? Do you remember why?
Know.
Can you go back to that and try to?
I just know that I didn't like seeing the differences. I didn't like seeing the contrast, I guess. I don't know. It was just something scary about it.
Did they say, was there any other of your senses stimulated? It sounds visual, but were there any sounds or anything else?
No, they never said anything. They never moved. It was just there.
But they communicated something in their presence.
What do you mean communicated something? It was just...
Or did they? I mean...
No.
I mean, through the fear, or within the fear, could there have been some kind of communication, you think? Just looking back.
No, I would see it and I would just wait for it to go away.
So why... you mentioned it, so it seems important in some way. Maybe you can elaborate on its significance.
There's very little specific things that I remember from my childhood. Like I can say overall that it was great and, and these things. But if you ask me for a particular incident, like my sisters, they do this all the time. Cheryl, do you remember when we went here or when that happened? And I have no idea. I mean, my memory is horrible, So it's very rare that I remember something specific from my childhood. And that's one of the things that I do remember.
Yeah, and that kind of an event isn't quite as not quite the same as what you experienced in church.
Oh no.
Which seemed to be community based and socially based, intellectually based. Was church was there, or how much of a spiritual basis was there to church then? How about your feeling for God? I mean, obviously there was a lot of stimulation and positive, feedback from going to church, a lot of pleasure. How about on the most spiritual level? How was that experience? Or was it more community, social, ritualistic, intellectual?
Yeah, I think it was more of that. I never really experienced anything that I would call spiritual, except for I remember when I was 12. So, and I don't know if other religions do this, but when you're Baptist, you get saved, which means you go in front of the church and you admit your sins and, ask God to forgive you. And then, Jesus comes into your life, into your heart and all that stuff. So I remember when I went up in front of the church when I was 12 and I did that, that was kind of an experience for me. But I don't know if it was even spiritual. It was just, I remember crying when I was up there, and it felt good, like whatever happened, it was nice.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but I
Okay.
don't know if there was a whole lot of what I would call
Yeah.
spiritual, I'd
All right.
say.
I mean, that was an important part of your life, so I just wanted to
Yeah, yeah.
go into it, see what we could find, and
Hmm.
see what you could find. So then you say you left home, and how old were you at
I
that?
did. So I wanted to go to school. We weren't the wealthiest people in Southern Louisiana, so my mom couldn't really afford to send me to college. So I decided to go to the military because that would give me an opportunity to go to school. So I did. I left home when I was 17, and I joined the Army. Went to basic training and all that stuff, which I loved as well. I tell people that all the time. I had so much fun in my basic training. It was hard, like it was hard. They do, it's exactly the way it is on TV. I mean, it's very, very hard. But I really liked it. I mean, I made a lot of good friends, and I got in shape. I got skinnier, which was a bonus. Um, yeah, so that was a really good experience too, And then I went off to my I don't know, what do they call it when they send you to the base that you're going to live in or whatever. So I went there, and that's when everything just went to hell, basically.
Went to hell.
Yes,
What
it was
happened?
all downhill from there.
Downhill. Uh-oh. Why? What happened?
Yeah, I think part of it was that I didn't know anything, Jerry. I mean, I grew up from where I grew up, Southern
Yeah.
Louisiana. The first time I saw an interracial couple was when I was like 18, and I was living in Washington State. I mean, I really didn't know a lot, and because I grew up in the church, I was really protected from a lot of stuff, you know. So when I'm out there by myself, without someone to watch me and say, Cheryl, and even though I knew in the back of my mind, I don't think that this is the right thing to do. I mean, I just went buck wild. I'm telling you, it was like somebody took the leash off, and I don't know. I just wanted to
Yeah.
explore everything that I could explore. I just did not care.
In talking about your church community and growing up on the plantation with family all around you, how much of that kind of being together is part of the African American or and I don't know what words. Let me know what words appropriate to use or black culture.
Mm-hmm.
Let me know what terminology you prefer.
Yeah,
What
that's fine.
how much of that is kind of is really steeped in black or African ancestry culture? That community. I once heard the term bundling used. People
Mm-hmm.
tend to bundle, and is that what you experienced then at the level of the church and growing up on the plantation?
I guess so. I've never heard of bundle, so I'm not sure
Well,
what that means.
bundling. It was a word told to me from by an African American woman some
Yeah.
time ago.
Well, I mean, the sense of community is off the charts. I mean, it really is. Everyone on that plantation, and then my father's mother, she lived in I don't want to say the city, but she didn't live on the farm. She was out in the suburbs, I guess. And even there, like our neighbors, it's really true. Like if she wasn't around, other people would watch us. If I got in trouble with a neighbor, that was perfectly fine. You know, the neighbor was looking out for me, and I would get in trouble again once I got home, you know, because she would tell. And I mean, and it was just understood that everyone was watching out for you, and everyone was essentially your mother, you know, and
Okay.
that level of respect was the same for everyone.
Okay. So yeah. So you grew up in this beautifully. The word insulated comes, but insulated in the best sense of it.
Oh yeah,
You
yeah.
know. Um, so going out then to when you were finally stationed after basic training,
Hmm.
you were kind of unleashed from all
Yeah.
that bundling, from that life of that bundled life, and so it was a bit of a shock. But I wanted to spend some time on that because we'll go back later on. We want to talk maybe about some of the maybe the relationship of the sense of community within Black culture and
Hmm.
the term that you and I have discussed prior to this of diunital thinking. Maybe there's some relationship there, but we can talk about that later.
Hmm.
So yeah, so you are went out. You were stationed where, like Washington State or something, or
Yes, Washington State.
yeah.
I was in basic training in Missouri, Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, and then I went to what was the name of the station in Washington State? I just remember North Fort because I was with the organization that had to go to Iraq every 6 months. They have the Patriot missiles and stuff. So I was with that group. So I went on the rotation to Iraq, and went to Kuwait and stuff like that and all that. So yeah, so that's where I was. Mhm.
Iraq? Did you have some scary situations there?
I didn't go to Iraq. They did.
Okay,
Every now and then. I would go. I went to Saudi Arabia
yeah.
and Kuwait, a couple other places that I can't remember. Yeah,
And
but that
it,
was fun too. I mean, I
yeah.
enjoyed that as well. But before I left home when I was 17, that was I just gone to the prom. That was the only dance I ever went to when I was in school. Like I skipped all the other stuff because it wasn't of God, and the music was not the way it should have been. But I was allowed to go to my senior prom. So and that's when I had my first boyfriend. Was when and this was like I'd never worn pants before or makeup or earrings, all that stuff. So it was that kind of thing, but I was fine with it because I'd never worn it before, so I wasn't losing anything. It wasn't a big deal. And I wasn't into all that in school anyway. I was all about making sure I got the highest grade in the class, and real nerdy kind of thing. So yeah. So, so when I went to the military, and I found out that guys found me attractive, man, that was great. That was good to know because I didn't know that before.
Really, you didn't know?
No, I had no idea. No idea. Yeah. So that got me in a lot of trouble, I think, because I didn't know how to handle that. I mean, I didn't
Right.
know what do I do in that situation? I don't know.
What did you do? Just I
Well,
don't know.
I got a boyfriend when I got there, and we got married like way too soon,
Yeah.
you know.
You were probably like what, 18, 19, or
Actually, well, when did I get married? I got married when I was 20. Yeah,
yeah,
when I was 20. Yeah,
yeah, pretty young.
yeah. And I had two kids, my two oldest. Yeah. But I
Huh.
mean, that was still a good experience too. But I mean, and it was around, and because I think because I really started suffering at a level that I never had before. Because, first of all, I was torn between what I was doing and what I was taught was the right thing to do,
Hmm.
So that was bothering me. And then I felt like some of the situations that I was in, even though I had essentially caused them, what I'd been taught was that I was special still and one of God's chosen. So he was supposed to help me when I needed it, you know, and he didn't. It didn't seem like he was. And so the excuses kept getting piled on each other. So this is the reason why he's not, because I have to do this better, or he needs me to do this first, or I wasn't sorry enough for what I did, and that's why he didn't. So I mean, I made so many excuses for God, you know, as to why he can still be the Almighty and in control, yet not choose not to help me or not be able to help me because something I was doing was blocking him from wanting to give me the help that I needed, if that makes sense.
What I'm seeing is kind of a breakdown in your relationship with God. Then this was
Yeah.
set you on a path of suffering. Sounds like.
Right, because I mean, at home, I had a fabulous relationship with God. I mean, he was my man. I mean, he was everything, you know, everything I believed, everything. It was all about him. Like he was in the middle of everything. He was the center, right? And it was about pleasing him and him being happy with me and going to bed knowing that if I died that night, I'm going to see him in heaven. I mean, you know, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I was beginning to question a little bit, just a little, because you can't question God. That's not something that you do. You know, you just accept whatever he says. So, but there was a niggling little something there, you know, around that time.
How did that suffering then evolve? I mean, what happened and what kind of milestones or spiritual milestones did it lead to, or did other events lead to?
Yeah. Well, it just got worse. I mean, so from Washington State, you know, I was married, I had babies and stuff, and I then went to uh, Rhode Island, and no, I didn't go to Rhode Island. Then I went to Germany. My husband at the
Yeah.
time was stationed in Germany. Yes, so I went to Germany, and I just had even more problems there, you know, in my relationships, of course, and but I did join a church there in Germany, and I was going through some horrible, horrible things. And I remember talking to the first lady, who's the pastor's wife, you know, in the church, because of the issues that I was going through. And I remember her quoting a scripture to me that God would not put any more on you than you can bear. And that's when she said that, that just made me so angry.
Yeah. Why?
Because I'm like, what are you talking about? I mean, that doesn't help me. What is that? You know,
Yeah.
you put more, that's ridiculous. You know, I didn't say that to her, but that's so, I mean, that's what I thought. That was really what was on my mind. And I didn't want to hear it. I didn't want to hear it anymore. Like in
Well,
the past, hearing scriptures would really encourage me and make me feel like, okay, you know, everything is going to be okay. But I was getting to the point to where it wasn't helping. It just wasn't helping.
and maybe it was the way she said it. Kind of was it if it was said as a throwaway line, that would make you more angry. Or uh,
I mean, I think she was sincerely trying to help me. I
yeah,
mean, maybe that's what she thinks when she's going through stuff too. You know, he won't, but I mean, but what does that do? That doesn't, that didn't do
I don't.
anything. You know, and finally, actually, some weeks later, I think I was at her house or something, and she called me over and said, you know what? Um, the same thing happened to me that helped me. When she said that, you're not the only one. The same thing happened to me, even though, you know, we appear to be the happiest couple that never had problems and stuff like that. When she said that, that helped me more than any scripture ever, you know, could have helped me because I didn't feel like I was alone at that point.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
she must have shown some real empathy with that.
Yes. Yes, and I felt it at that time. It wasn't just like it's like a throwaway or something. This was real. This was real. What she was telling me was real. You
Yeah,
know.
people talk about the difference between sympathy and empathy, and
Mhm.
my friend Valerie Cooper sent me a nice article on the difference between those two, and recently, which I recently read and watched the video, so it kind of helped me to formulate that
Sure.
portion of this interview. So that experience then shows the importance of empathy when communicating.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. So from there, I went to Rhode Island with my husband, and that's where I got. We ended up getting a divorce, so that was my first divorce. And then I came here to. I moved from Rhode Island here to Virginia, which is where my sister lives. I was in school. I went to Salve Regina in Rhode Island, which I think is the most beautiful campus in the world. I mean, it's right on the cliff walk, they call it, next to the ocean. It was just, and there are a bunch of renovated mansions. It was crazy
I
beautiful.
never heard of it. What is it called again?
It's Salve Regina University in Newport, Rhode Island.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely beautiful. It was a great school. I loved it. So I got my bachelor's degree in social work, and I came down here and went straight into getting my master's degree at a Catholic University of America in DC.
Yeah.
So I got that, and I met someone here and got married again. And I have two boys from that marriage, and that one is now in a vat of acid dissolving. The marriage, not the boys.
Oh, I was gonna say. So,
So
are you
I
you're
think
separated then, or?
very separated,
Yeah.
yes, in the throes of divorce,
Okay.
which has been really so with that going on in at the same time that all this other stuff like the non-duality stuff is going on has been really it's been so interesting, Jerry, because I'll have to say it was about what are we in now 2013 and 2010, okay, is really when my relationship with God like came to a standstill. So I remember I was in my bedroom. I had been looking for a church for a while because I really felt like, I want that again. Whatever I had in my childhood when I was going to church and I just felt so good and hopeful and
Yeah.
encouraged, I needed that again because my life was just crazy, and I needed that stability and that anchor, So I'd been looking for a church for a while. So I finally found this one little bitty church in a storefront that I thought was, it was new. He only had a few members, but I liked the pastor and I liked some of the stuff he was saying. So one day when I went, he had Bible studies on every Tuesday. So they were going through two books. And he said, Cheryl, read the book, and when you come back, we can discuss it. And I like doing stuff like that. I love that. So I took the book, and I didn't read it for like a week, because I was busy doing other stuff. So finally, one day, I was just feeling really horrible, just really down and depressed. And so I got the book. I forget the name of the book. I don't remember what the book was, but I started reading it. And there was one thing that I read in the book. It said something like, you have to get the demons out of your house. If you have any Stephen King books, you got to get those out or something like that. And when I read that, I'm like, you know what? I'm really tired. And that scared me. What I read, it scared me. So I'm like, I'm tired of being afraid. I'm sick of it. I can't do it anymore, And I said, in my mind, I'm on my bed thinking, I'm afraid of everything. I'm
Wow.
afraid of what's going to happen tomorrow. I'm afraid of what's going to happen to my kids. I'm afraid that I'm not a good mother. I'm just afraid of everything. And I said, you know what? I'm even afraid of God because I feel like if I don't do everything the right way, he's going to punish me. and he's going to send me to hell, and, it's just going to be all over. So I said, you know what? And I said this part out loud. I said, you know what, God, you can just fuck off. Okay. And I threw the book on the floor. My Bible was near me. I threw that on the floor.
Is that a
And I said,
scripture?
I,
Is that a scripture? Is that in scripture somewhere? I said your scripture. All right, I don't know.
yeah, but I mean, it took all of that for me to get to the point to like, I'm done with God. I'm just done. I'm finished. Whatever you're doing, you're not doing a good job. I mean, somebody else needs to be at the helm because you're not doing it, And I said, I'm just finished. I'm forgetting everything I ever learned. I don't care. I'm done. Okay.
You were filled with, you had enough of fear, and you fired God basically.
I fired him. I fired him. I mean, he was done. I was finished with him, right? So, and Jerry, I meant that like from the soles of my feet.
Yeah,
When I
I
said
know.
I'm finished, I really did mean that. And I remember as soon as that happened, right, I got the strongest compulsion that I interpreted it as to read the story of Adam and Eve. There was no voice coming. I didn't hear anything in my head. It was just a feeling to read that story. Okay. But I was like, no, I just said I'm done. I
Ah,
was like, I'm not picking up a Bible anymore. I'm finished. I'm not going to do it.
wow.
So, but it just, as like a day went by, and it was just like all day, read the story all day. So by the second day, it was like 2:30 in the morning. I couldn't take it anymore. I'm like, fine, I'll read it. So I got my Bible, I turned on my light, and I read the story. And that was it. I mean, okay, I read the story. Nothing happened. I just read it, and I was like, okay, whatever. So I went back to sleep. I was finally able to sleep because I didn't feel like I was being bothered anymore to read that story. So as the days passed, questions about that story started popping up. The first one was, why are there two stories of the creation in the Bible? Because the Adam and Eve thing is the second one. Because the first time when God spoke, the man and woman were just there. And in the second one, he actually had to get down in the mud and make them and breathe life into them, all this other kind of stuff. So I was like, why are there two stories? And then, why did God, the supreme being, have to put Adam to sleep? He's God. Why can't he just do the thing, or whatever? So questions like that just started coming up, which had me Googling to try to find out if there was any commentary about this anywhere that talked about the reason why there were two stories. And the Googling got me to, for some reason, I don't know why, but Wayne Dyer. I started listening to Wayne Dyer.
Yeah.
And I found some videos of a guy named Osho, right? So, I mean, and what Wayne Dyer was saying was different than stuff that I'd heard before. And I liked him because he seemed really, I don't know what the word is to describe him, but I liked that he was on stage with no shoes on, and he had all these plants and water and stuff around him. I know that it was different to me, and he just seemed like a nice guy. Now Osho, I don't know, he was a little weird to me, but because he talked like really slow, and his eyes blinked really, his blinking was really slow. But the stuff he was saying was just interesting to me. I didn't know what he was talking about, but something was, I don't know, it was just interesting, I guess.
Now, how did he compare to Wayne Dyer?
So
When Wayne Dyer spoke,
Wayne Dyer,
more clear, more understandable?
what he was saying was more on this planet.
Yeah.
I guess like it was more concrete. It was more, okay, I get it. I see how A leads to B leads to C, that type of thing. Osho was a little not there. You
Yeah.
know, it was something else,
So
you
Wayne
know.
Dyer probably was more relevant to your life, and Osho
Yeah,
might
yeah,
have been relevant to, I don't know, maybe consciousness itself or something like that. I don't know.
yeah, exactly. And I didn't have to work as hard as I did with him to try to understand what he was saying. With Osho, I had to be like, okay, I just don't get this. I mean, you know, what does that mean?
Now, do you find, I'm skipping ahead, but do you find that's kind of reversed in later years, where it's easier to hear Osho than Wayne Dyer?
Oh,
Or
absolutely. Yes, definitely, definitely so.
okay, so go back. So
Yeah.
you're
So, and I remember I was really excited as I was finding out these different things. And I remember calling my oldest sister and telling her that something has happened. I said, Darlene, something's happened, and I don't know what it is, but what I do know is that there's no going back from this. You know, because there's a thing in at least with Southern Baptists, it's called backsliding. So you're doing real good with God, and then you go back in the world and you start drinking and smoking and having sex and you know all this other kind of stuff. That's called backsliding. But you can then go back to the church and repent and get back in good standing with God, right?
yeah.
So I told her there's no backsliding from this. Like whatever this is, there is no going back. And when I said that, I didn't. When I said it, I didn't know what I meant by that. Um, because it wasn't backsliding. What I was saying was there's nothing to go back to. And I didn't know what that meant. There's nothing to go back to. Like, what does that mean? Um, and and stuff like that started happening. Like I would say things and have no idea what it meant or why I said that, you know,
Hmm.
at the time. So I stopped saying things. Because people would be like, "What are you talking about?" And I couldn't explain it. So I'm like, "Okay, let me just keep this to myself and see what's going on here." So, you know, I continued looking for answers to the story and Googling and stuff like that. And I found a website that was talking about this book called A Course in Miracles. Okay.
Yeah.
And so I went to Amazon and I got the book. I downloaded it to my Kindle and I started reading it. And I'm like, this is the most ridiculous stuff I have ever heard. I mean, this is clearly from the devil. Clearly.
Yeah.
I mean, you know. But I kept reading it. I mean, I couldn't stop reading it. I kept reading it. And then, so I read the text and I understood probably 5% of what I was reading. Seriously. Because it just sounded so ridiculous. I mean, I had nothing to, I don't know, there was nothing to compare it to. It was just
Hmm.
out there. But I thought it was funny. Like a lot of the stuff in the book was funny. And I would find myself reading it and just, I remember one time I read a passage, something about I need to look at the disaster that I've made. And for some reason, that was so funny to me. And it was
Yeah.
weird because I'm sitting on my bed just laughing. I'm crying laughing, Jerry, at what this said. So that part of me was laughing. And another part was like, what are you laughing at? You know, it's like, why is that funny? So that was really weird. So it happened. I had been reading the course for like a month. Did you want to ask a question? Because I've been talking a lot here.
No, 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 fine. Go ahead. I'll
So
let this.
I've been reading the course for about a month, and I hadn't read all the text. I wanted to get to the exercises because there are exercises at the end of the book where you repeat stuff, or I don't know. I can't even remember what the exercises are. But you do it a couple of times throughout the day or whatever. So I was into the exercises, and I was sitting at work, going through my emails. I think it was in May, like it was like May 2012, I believe. No, May 2010. So I'm going through my emails, and there's a cup next to me. There's a pencil next to me. My heater's on behind me. And all of a sudden, there's nobody in the office. Okay, I'm the only one there in my cube at this time. So all of a sudden, my heart just starts beating wildly. Okay. Like it's trying to beat itself out of my chest. I mean, really. And my hands get really clammy and sweaty. The first thing I'm thinking is, oh my God, I'm having a heart attack.
Mhm.
And there's nobody here. I was terrified, of course. I'm just so scared. I'm only, in my 30s. Why am I having a heart attack? And I'm pretty healthy. So I remember looking at my hands, how sweaty they were. And just they were shaking, and I'm just wondering, what do I do? What do I do? And then everything stopped. Like I wasn't scared anymore. My heart stopped beating fast. I stopped shaking, and I was in eternity. Okay, felt like I was in eternity, and every single thing around me was there too. Okay, and a couple of things. Now the word eternity didn't come up immediately. It was just,
When you say everything around you was there too, everything around you, just elaborate on that a little bit. Everything.
Well, I'm in my cube. I'm in front of my computer. Like I said, the heater's going on behind me. I'm sitting in a chair. The walls, everything is there. And
But I'm hearing that everything is there as eternity as well. That's what I'm hearing from your description. Like you said, you were in eternity, and
yeah,
everything around you was just here. I'm just trying to get into the
yeah,
significance of just here.
it was just like it's already here. Like we're already here
Yeah.
is what came up as well. We're already here.
Okay.
You know?
Personally understand what you're saying, but I'm just want to
Yeah,
see if you're
yeah,
give you the opportunity to
right.
maybe just
So
describe it more.
so I got that feeling, and there was also the feeling that there was nothing to do. And I don't mean like bored, like I'm bored, what am I going to do now? But it was like, what is it like? It's hard to describe nothing to do. Because I didn't just feel like there was nothing to do. It's like nothing to do is what is. Like this is nothing to do, which is weird too, because I don't know, it's hard to think about that. But that's what I felt. And I remember looking at my computer thinking, what the heck is a computer doing here? Like
Yeah.
why is there a computer in eternity? That was weird to me. And it's not that eternity was the weird thing going on. It was the fact that there was a computer there. That was the thing that was out of place, right? Um, and then I also felt the urge like to take off my shoes and to go outside, stuff like that. It didn't last that long, like maybe less than a minute. So when it finally faded, and it faded like really like a bright light just fading out to black. I felt the fading of it. So I mean that really got my seeking going. I'm like, what the hell was that?
Yeah.
And why did it happen to me? And has it happened to anyone else? And am I crazy? And what's going on? I mean, so I really, really started looking after that, just trying to find out what was that. I mean, that's not something that I would forget.
So
I feel like a
what
lot of
part of
people.
you? I mean, a lot of people might experience these things and go to a doctor and get medication. I mean, not everyone values these experiences. And what do you think about you made you value it and pursue it in some proper way? Do you think that's just part of your makeup or?
I don't know, but I really felt like because I knew because one of my questions was, how in the world would I know that? Like I've never experienced that before. So how would I know exactly what that was?
So, but
You know?
like you said earlier, you're an intellectually kind of based person, or always were
Yeah,
growing up.
right, yeah.
So, so does your sharp intellect then, is that one of the reasons that you did pursue this rather than try to avoid it? I mean, curiosity maybe?
I don't think it was, I think because when I said that day, God, I'm through with you, I was still talking to God. I mean, I still believed in a God. I
Yeah.
did. It was just, I need to take over now. You're done. Like you're fired. I'll do it. But I think there was still something that knew that there was a God that existed. So I think that experience, I don't know, I felt like that was God telling me something, like who he really was or something like that. Because I knew that all this stuff about, him, all the stuff that's in the Bible, how he kills children and he's on that side, and he's not on this side. And, the story of Job, for shits and giggles, he's like, okay, just go ahead and do it. Or, like, what kind of God is that? Like he can't be like that. That can't be right. It just can't. As I started exploring all this other stuff and, after I had that experience and what's seen is that that's not right. That's not true. It just makes me so happy that it's not, that I was wrong about that. And and after that experience, it was like the shit really hit the fan, Jerry. It really did. It really, really did. It was like the more that I tried to discover what this was, or try to make some sense of how can I be here and going through all this stuff and be in eternity?
Yeah.
Because clearly we're already here, clearly. But how can that be? How can both be happening at the same time? I don't get it. So the more I try to align those two, the more stuff just came up to tell me, you are not in heaven.
Yeah.
There is no way you could be, so.
So some kind of integration had to happen then between this eternity and this pain.
Yeah, is it possible for me to be in eternity and still want to strangle my ex-husband? Is that possible? Can that?
Yeah, in my opinion, yes. But what do I know?
Yeah. So, so one day it was just, so that happened and I continued to search and, my life continued to fall apart until one day I just started blogging.
Well, that's when you started writing. Okay.
Yeah, because there was no one, I couldn't go to anyone with this. Even with the videos that I was watching, and I was watching videos, like I started listening to Alan Watts, who I love because he's so intellectual. I love that kind of, like the way he presents that information. I really receive it well that way. So I started listening to him. I also started listening to Kenneth Wapnick because he talks about the Course and stuff like that.
He just passed away a couple of days ago.
I know. I saw that on his website. So he was one of the first individuals, along with Wayne Dyer, that I started listening to, him and Alan Watts. And I started reading Plato, his The Cave and stuff like that. Started reading that, listening to lectures on that. And then I discovered some of the other folks online, like Rupert Spira and Paul Hederman and Tony Parsons, and those people. I could hear what they were saying, but as I mentioned to you before, what I was hoping to find was somebody who was just like me, and me hearing that from that person, So I'm looking for literally a young Black female from the South who was talking about the same thing that I had experienced. Seriously, that's what I was expecting to see. I couldn't find it anywhere. So
there aren't many Black people, or even many women, in this non-duality culture. Yeah.
So with writing, because when I would write something, like I would just get an idea and just write something, and then I would literally go back and read it, like as if I weren't the one who wrote it. Because just like in the beginning, when I would say something and I didn't really know what it meant, I would just say it, and then later figure out, oh, that's what I meant by that. That's what this writing was. So something would just come to me and I'd write it down. It would make no sense as I'm writing it. And I just go back and read it a couple of times. And so I kind of became my own teacher, I guess. So my blog was private for a long time. I just
it was.
you know, because that's what it was for. It wasn't for people to read, because I didn't even get it, so I didn't expect anybody else to really get it either.
And you're a really good writer, and isn't that part of your job is writing?
It is, yes. I write policy and guidance and stuff like that. I like to write, and I have one of my blog posts about how I love words, and I do. I mean, I subscribe to dictionary.com, and I love using new words and learning new words. This really likes words.
Yeah,
Hmm.
this. Have you had any interest from any publishers yet? I know you just made your blog public recently, right? I think.
Hmm. Yeah, I did.
Um, yeah, I think you'll get interest from some publishers if you haven't already.
Yeah, no, I haven't really looked into that.
It's only been a couple of days, I think, that it's been public. But
Yeah, but
uh,
I mean, I found that I loved writing about it. And as I was writing about it, I wanted to talk about it. But I'm like, who am I going to talk to? There's nobody's, because I feel like I can only talk to people who want to hear it. You
yeah,
know,
right.
I can't just walk up to my mom and be like, you know what, mom? You are not who you think you are, or this is
Yeah,
not really a solid earth, and that's not a chair, you know, that sort of stuff. Because, you know, she'd get the holy oil and she'd call the pastor and call everybody to the
I
house and
know.
do the exorcism or whatever. So
I
I'm
know.
like,
You're getting me scared,
yeah.
you know. I'm part of it. But, I mean, there's a place for there's a place for religious practice, certainly.
It's
That's
been
interesting.
interesting.
So
Yeah.
so you've had the urge not just to write, but just to communicate in general, like to speak.
Yeah.
And you have a great presence. I mean, you're the only person I've interviewed ever that, number one, I really had nothing to say, had to force myself to talk. And number two, the only person I've interviewed on video. I've done everything else audio.
Oh,
You're the
really?
only person I feel compelled to look at and see,
Ah,
really, while I talk to, of all the people I've interviewed. So
yeah.
I think, yeah, you can go right out there and start just speak to an audience that would be interested in. There are people there. You're in Virginia, there's
Hmm.
kinds of people there. Yeah. So do you kind of see that kind of dropping into your lap sooner or later? That kind
I
of
don't know.
experience. Yeah.
I really don't know. I mean, it would be nice, because I love, one thing that I also do in my job is I speak at different agencies about various topics, mostly related to, you know, the work that I do, like training and stuff like that. But I love speaking in front of people. That's fun. That's fun to me
Mm.
too. I mean, unlike religion, where you're tasked to go out and, you know, tell people and bring folks into the kingdom and all this stuff, I think it's really super neat how I don't have to say anything.
I literally don't have
You
to
know,
say anything.
right, in order. So me going out and speaking to people is just, you know, me entertaining myself, because it's not needed, it's not necessary at all. So I don't have to bring in souls in order to get my mansion in heaven, and, you know, there's a reward at the end. Anything like that.
Yeah. So we started in silence. We're not finished. We're not anywhere near finished, but we've got
Right.
another silence. Um, yeah, it's nice to see you. It's nice to look at you. Did you ever send an email to Justin Miles?
I did. I
Yeah,
did send him an email. Yeah, I haven't heard back yet, but I did send him something.
he's a guy who shows up online for a while, then he'll disappear for a year or two.
Oh, really?
I don't know. I don't know what's up with him.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fine. I also went to you sent me a link to Kenny's website.
Yeah, Kenny Johnson, because you're
So,
interested in
yeah.
African Americans who are
Hmm.
into non-duality. There's not many that I
Yeah.
can think of.
Yeah. So I went there and I listened to some of his stuff. And I remember there was one guy I was corresponding with in California. He had a blog. Well, he has a blog as well. I don't remember his name either. My memory is horrible.
Yeah,
It really, really is. It's so bad. So, but I do, I mean, he's like huge into Advaita stuff, and he knows all that stuff. And I mean, I didn't know, all I knew was, Old and New Testament. I didn't know anything about the stuff that's talked about a lot in these circles. And I still don't know a whole bunch about it. But I mean, he was really learned in this stuff, and the emails that he would send back to me would be chock full of all. And finally, I had to tell him, I was like, "Man, you're getting real fancy here on me. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just a girl from Southern Louisiana. I have no idea, what this is all about." And he asked me, he's like, "So, are you self-realized?" And I'm like, "Man. Am I self-realized?" And I was like, "No, I mean, I'm not." I was like, "No." I still, like, my answer would be no, I'm not. I don't even know what that means, actually. I mean,
Is it a good question in the first place?
I wouldn't, I don't know. I mean, I couldn't see myself asking someone that, because it seems redundant almost. I mean, why would I ask you? I don't know. It's just really weird. I don't know. I just don't get the question, maybe.
I mean, is it any different than asking,
I don't.
are you unreal? Are you unrealized? Or I don't know if there's any difference to asking either one. Are you unenlightened? Are you enlightened? I mean, is there any difference? I think that, I think they're both bad questions.
Yeah, I don't get them. Like, I don't think they make sense. So it's hard to answer a question that you don't understand.
Sounds like the person you were writing knew a lot about Advaita, and probably my
Oh yeah.
sense is that he quoted a lot of things. It mentioned a lot of
hmm
people, and
And I was wondering, I'm like, should I be looking into that stuff?
yeah,
Because when I talk about it, I really don't get a whole lot of it. So, and I remember another guy, I mean, he was just, I didn't know what was going on with what he was saying. I really didn't. So I'm like, maybe I shouldn't be talking to people because I don't know that stuff. So, because when I look at the satsangs on YouTube and stuff, like the folks in the audience, when they get up and ask the questions, I mean,
yeah,
man, they really know what they're asking. I mean, they know this stuff backwards and forwards. So
yeah,
I'm like, if somebody asked me, I'd be like, I have no idea. I'm sorry.
yeah.
Look at this Rupert Spira video for an answer because I can't
Yeah.
answer that question.
Well, you would get different questions probably, you'd get different questions.
I have to, or there'd be a lot of silence in the room.
Well, the right answer would come. The right answer
Yeah.
would come. Just fire Rupert Spira, I mean, he's doing his own thing. You got your thing to do. We're all doing our own thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it though. I mean, it's just it's fun to talk about.
Yeah. Now, at some point you wrote me, and that was on December 17th. I got the letter in front of me.
Oh, you did. I don't know why I sent you that letter, Jerry.
And it
I've
was,
seen your website
yeah,
before. I mean, I knew your name.
yeah,
I'd seen stuff about you before, but I was never compelled to write to you.
yeah. So what compelled you to write? I mean, you were, I can read, I know from what I read here, but it was an interesting letter. Really interesting letter. I said, I've got to meet this person.
Yeah?
And I don't even know if I had a link to your blog in that first letter. I might have
Yeah, I don't
found
think
it.
so.
Might have found it through your email address. I think I did.
Oh, did you?
Maybe
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe it was your second letter that I found your blog. But you just describe yourself and
hmm
talk about some things that we already talked about. I'm just going through it here. And but in this letter, you communicate that you have this need, maybe more than a desire, a need to talk to people, to get your stuff out there, basically.
Yeah, it's a desire. More of a, yeah, it's like when you get hungry. You just feel like you want to eat something. Or not even when you're hungry. When you get a taste for something. Like, I really feel like eating some chocolate right now, some potato chips.
You do.
I really use a soda. It's like that. It's that
Oh,
kind of thing, you know?
craving, it sounds like. But
Yeah, it's like a craving. That's exactly what it is. Yeah, it feels like a craving.
mm,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's that's what you're doing now. So
Mhm.
that's what you're doing. You're out there.
But again, I love the fact that it doesn't have to be done. You know, and that
Yeah,
like when I had that experience that day, that was one of the very, very strong. I mean, I'm just so clear, Jerry,
mm,
that there's no reason. And it's a really, it's not like a why are you doing that type thing. It's just a really soft reminder almost that there's no reason for it. There's really no reason for it.
yeah,
Yeah.
and yet, as Alan Watts is always so good at pointing out, there's nothing but movement and action and
Yeah.
things happening. I remember that from one of his videos. He made a
Hmm.
great point of that.
Hmm.
There's nothing but action and doing, and
Right.
people use their name and add ing on it. So there's like Cheryl Ing, Jerry Ing. There's just
Oh, is that what they do? Oh, I like
you'll
that.
you'll you'll hear that from, yeah. Once you get into the game a little more, you learn all the
Okay.
better yet. Don't get into the game. It's a big mess.
Is it?
All the Meshuggah people. Something you asked me. You said, "How come there's no black people in non-duality?" And I said, well, I'm really interested in
Hmm.
if I can do anything to. Uh, I mean, the expression. What doesn't matter what background the person is. What's being said is always the same, but it is different people. It
Hmm.
is different people. It's different nationalities, in different age groups, different religious backgrounds, and different races, and they all should be. Everyone should be represented. There's no reason
Hmm.
not to. But the fact is, the non-duality culture is mostly older white guys. So
Hmm.
I don't think any of them. I mean, there's no conspiracy to keep it that way. It's just the way it is.
I mean, also, I think because I was very like I really haven't gone into a lot of detail about this with my family or even my friends, just because I mean, it wouldn't even if someone were to come to me with this before I had that experience, and I mean had that experience because just talking about it doesn't seem to have the same impact. You know, I mean, maybe I would be where I am now if I hadn't had that experience. Maybe I don't have no idea. But it seems like that experience just trumped everything. Like in that moment, the fact that I felt like I was looking at a computer, the experience trumped that. It's like,
Yeah,
even if you think you're looking at a computer, whatever, but this is what it is. Okay. I don't care what your thought about it is. This is the way it is. And I had to keep going back to that because as I got more into it, I'm like, this can't be right. I mean, this can't be, everything is telling me something different than what this experience told me. So, and I really found that I had to keep going back to that to be like, but no, I mean, that just, it may be this, but it's that too, and there's something that needs to go on there. You can't just ignore the other. So the experience, it just trumped everything, So me just chatting about it I don't know if that would have had the same.
no, yeah. I think that's why it's sufficient to be silent too, because the way I look at it, and other people look at it this way, is that when these experiences come, it's kind of like a vertical event. It's kind of a bolt out of the blue.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
to talk about it and to write about it is more of a linear thing.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
So, and it is literally a symbolism of a cross. I don't mean to bring back all your Christian stuff, but that could be a power of that symbol.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I figured, man, if this is the stuff Jesus was talking about back then, no wonder they nailed him to that cross. And, I
Yeah.
mean, this is ludicrous. Who talks like that?
Yeah,
You
well,
crazy?
yeah,
Something's
yeah, I
wrong
mean,
with,
yeah, no doubt he did talk about that, but and they say that a lot of that is in the Book of Thomas, but that's his
Yeah,
word.
yeah, yeah.
That's more of a non-dual version of his words. So no doubt he did know all that, but he only can speak so much.
hmm And I was even watching Mob Wives yesterday,
Mob
you know,
wives, okay.
and I'm like, oh my God, these bitches are in heaven. Can you believe it?
These bitches are what? They're in heaven?
In heaven. They're in
Yeah,
eternity. They're here with
that's
me.
right. They're here with you. Oh, cool. Yeah,
That's amazing, isn't it?
yeah. And so Jesus must have known that because he hung out with the mob bitches. See?
Yes.
That's where he had to be coming from.
Right.
That's where he had to be coming from. Yeah, it's amazing. If you hook up with me, I can make you a mob bitch, okay? Because
Okay, yeah.
I'm in the mob.
Let's do
I
that,
mean, I
Jerry.
mean, I'm not in the mob now, but I'll get into the mob
You
just to keep things interesting.
right.
I don't know. How do you apply for a job in the mob?
I don't know.
I don't want.
Monster.com? I don't know.
I,
Craigslist, possibly?
yeah.
I don't know.
Uh,
It's so much fun though, just to see all the stuff that's noticed. It is. I like it.
you like it?
I like it. It's hard to let go of that stuff though. I found that it was really hard because especially when it came to being angry at someone or not liking them, because I think I wrote a blog about this, how it's the feeling like, I think it was, you have to take your brother with you or something like that it was. But I can't be saved alone by myself. Because in the church, when I said when I was 12, I went up and I was saved, that was just me. God saved me. You have to take care of your own stuff. I know I'm good now. But that's not the way this is. If you're going to be saved, everybody has to be, because there is only one. Who else is there? That was hard to accept. I mean, that was hard to get past. That really was. I didn't want to do that. I don't want him to be here too. I'm better than he is or she is.
Yeah.
I need some special treatment. I need to be acknowledged for what I've done, for the sacrifices I've made. So, and then with my upbringing, that was a huge hurdle.
Really?
It really was. It really was. And it doesn't mean that I don't get mad at people anymore, or, like I said, feel like I want to strangle somebody, but I know that that's not really what's going on here.
Well, it's good to have those feelings because if you start talking to groups, people will ask you about those feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that there's a bridge to be built between the so-called white non-dual culture, mostly white, and African American culture? Do you see yourself as a bridge builder, perhaps? I mean, maybe not. Maybe that's not your stated ambition, but do you see that might happen as a result of the playing out of this work that's happening?
Mm-hmm.
Do you
Yeah,
see
I
that?
guess it could. It isn't a goal of mine, but
No,
I guess
I hear that.
yeah, something could happen, I guess. And I never heard of diunital thinking before you mentioned it.
I know it's used in Black studies
Yeah.
to speak about a state of mind that is beyond duality.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it stands for a very extreme type of non-duality, but definitely something that transcends good and evil, right and wrong, and all that.
Yeah, and from what I read on it, it was funny because from what I read, it was saying that African Americans tend to think more in that way than whites do, which is
The
kind of
whites,
weird because you're saying
interesting.
you
Well, I don't know. Is there a natural?
no. I
It's
mean, not that
conceivable.
I've experienced.
Okay, I don't know either, but
Yeah, no, but what I'm saying is like you're making a separation and then saying we think there's no separation and they think that there is, so it's kind of weird. I don't
yeah,
know.
a little
It
bit of
was just,
little paradoxical.
yeah,
But
yeah.
it's a good term to put out there, diunital thinking,
It
and
is.
to
I agree. I mean, I never heard of it
but
before, but it is, yeah. And as I mentioned, like in my job, this individual that I work with, he's at another agency now, but because I'm in training, and we talk a lot about training transfer. When you go to a training, you learn some new information and you go back to work and apply it, and transfer what you've learned onto the job. So some research that he's done, he's come up with a method. It sounds like diunital thinking, where he's training executives and leaders to consider the possibility that, for example, an employee can come in late to work and still be a good employee, like both and, right? Instead of saying, well, if you do this, then it means this. Do you know what I mean? So, and his method involves a lot of peer teaching or peer instruction, because he feels like if you can hear something from your mom, for instance, and it go in one ear and out the other. But if your friend or your peer tells you the same thing, then you'll receive it,
mhm.
So that expert model is not the best way to learn from
So
an expert or someone who's written a book about it or something, because
what you're getting into now is something that you wrote and told me about. It's a way of approaching organizations with what you've called your method or system, methodology or system. You've used the word unpacking.
yes, so it's
So,
basically unlearning.
okay, and you're bringing this
Yeah.
to like to who right now, or government organizations, or
Yeah.
government departments, or what?
Yes. Yes. Government departments. I'm trying to get more into it, just because I like it so much. So I'm going to see what I can do to work with him, to put that message, because the message is more about beliefs than it is. It's about challenging your beliefs about something and someone, which doesn't go over too well in that environment because it's not as concrete as people would like.
Mm.
So, but it's getting some traction. I mean, as long as you can show results from it, people will take notice.
It's about unlearning.
Unlearning, yeah.
So
Hmm.
in your social work career, your schooling, did you come across stuff that was kind of diunital or non-dual, or because social work kind of has to require to look at all kinds of people and not really react or take things personally or react to different situations. Do you recall coming? Were you impressed by any particular person you read or anything you came across that you would call?
Yeah. There is, yeah, there is that. I remember in class we had to do some activities where we were given scenarios, and we had to choose how we would react in that situation. And I remember a particular scenario where a young mother came into, I don't know, like a welfare office, and we noticed that she had her nails done, and her hair looked really nice. So you can tell either she did it herself or she paid to have someone do it. But she was asking for money to help her children, help feed her children. And the discussion was around our perception of her and whether or not she really needed them. Because if she really needed it, then she wouldn't have her nails done. She wouldn't have on a new pair of shoes and that sort of thing. So there is some discussion, around it. Like, can she have her nails done and still be a good mom who wants to provide for her kids? Is that allowed for her to do something nice for herself? So we did have discussions about that. that sort of thing in class. And of course, you get folks on both sides saying, no, this is your priority. You come last, your kids come first. And then there's the other side, like, yeah, I mean, she can still be a good mom and want to do something good for herself as well.
Mm.
So yeah, so that's a constant in social work.
Yeah.
It really is. Yeah.
Sounds like the demand is to keep an open mind.
Oh, definitely.
And so,
And not judge, suspending judgment.
yeah.
But I haven't really, I mean, and that's something I want to get back into too, because I have all the requisite degrees, but I don't really work in social work. But I like it. I mean, I like working with people.
You know, if you start giving satsangs and retreats and stuff like that, it's really stuff that kind of bears on psychotherapy. And with an MS in social work, you probably could do counseling.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it might come together with that.
Yeah, possibly.
Who knows? All right, so yeah, I wanted to touch on social work. So on this unpacking, which is basically an unlearning,
Yes.
what are the challenges there? I think you mentioned one of the challenges that probably really don't want to change. But
Right.
how do you teach it? And
Um, well, my colleague, he does most of the teaching of it. I'm really learning from him as well. But I think the central message is that we can do all the learning, or you can go to a course, say, I don't know, maybe you're having a problem delegating. Okay, so you're an executive and you micromanage a lot, and that's clearly having an impact on the morale of your employees. Okay, so you need to do more delegating, all right? And you go to the courses and you find out how to do it, and hear examples of how other people do it. And so you have the information, it's there. But there's still something blocking you from doing that. And it's some belief that you have that by delegating, you're going to in some way become a casualty. Like this person is going to drop the ball and it's all going to be on your shoulders and you're going to be responsible and the boss is going to fire you. They're not, so there's something there that has you afraid to apply what you've learned. You're just afraid. You don't have the courage to apply what you've learned. So unpacking is trying to take all the layers off until you come to that underlying belief about what you feel is going to happen if you delegate. Like, what are the risks that you see there? And then really looking at those and asking, is that true? Are you going to get fired if something, and in doing exercises like that with peers asking you these questions, is that really true? Then you develop the courage to say, you know what? Maybe that isn't true. If I do this, I'm not going to fall off a cliff, or the bottom isn't going to fall out, and I'll be just fine. I'll be just fine. So getting to that underlying belief is what it's about.
yeah, so it's kind of
Which takes some honesty and work. Yeah.
kind of an unpacking of the beliefs that block
Yeah.
your true knowing.
Yes.
So kind of get to that, get a person in touch with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you said your colleague, I don't know if you mentioned his name or.
Steve. His name is Steve Freeman.
Okay.
And he works for another federal agency, but but we talked about it extensively. I've had him come in and train individuals about it because I love it. I mean, I think it's great. I mean, it would be all over the government if it were, if I had any say in it. But he's a what do they call them? Organizational psychologist.
Okay.
And industrial organizational
Yeah.
psychologist. That's what he does.
Okay.
He's a great guy. I mean, he's very smart.
Yeah, sounds like a good guy to work with, and it all feeds into all this non-duality work.
It does.
It all will help.
Yeah, when he first started telling me about it, I'm like, man, this really, I didn't mention it to him, but I'm like, this clearly sounds like some non-dual stuff here.
There are people very much into non-duality who are also into organizational theory. It's like it's a big part of. It's not a big part. It's a little known part of the whole non-duality.
Yeah.
The whole field of non-duality, organizational theory. Yeah, there are people very seriously into it.
Mm-hmm.
They go to the non-duality conference, and
Really?
yeah,
Wow.
yeah, they're really yeah, it's something you can get into, and so I mean, that's what you're tapping into that. So there's a big thing I want to talk about, and maybe for you it's not a big thing, but I have a friend who editor on my newsletter. Do you get my newsletter at all? The non-duality highlights.
I don't. I guess I need to sign up for that.
Well, if you want to be in it, yeah, you got to get it.
Yeah.
No, you'll be in it anyway. You don't have to get it. But
Okay.
anyway, one of my friends and co-editors is
Uh-huh.
Dustin Lindensmith, and he's a stay-at-home dad. He's got 3 kids,
Mm-hmm.
and he read your blog, and he says part of what I find so trippy about her is that she has an original but very effective language to express real insights in this area, non-duality.
Really?
He says, very cool. I'd love to hear how this may have affected her parenting.
Oh.
So there you go. We get into parenting. You have 4 beautiful kids, and
Yeah.
is this having any effect, especially on well, I don't know, any of your kids are aged. Can you tell your ages of your kids?
Yeah, my babies are they're 17, 14, 4, and 3.
Yeah. Yeah, you've raised
Yes.
two separate families, it sounds like.
Yeah.
And
Well, I mean, I actually got tired of people mistaking me for my oldest, like their oldest sister or something. So I'm
oh,
like, let me have some more kids so
oh,
people can see that I'm a mom.
it's a good reason.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, but how has it affected my parenting? Well, I certainly don't stress as much about stuff,
That's a
and
that's a big deal right
yeah,
there.
yeah, I don't, and I don't feel like this may sound like a horrible thing for a mom to say, but I don't feel like I have to mold and shape them into a good person or into something. I just don't feel that anymore. I don't
So
want to say that they can just do whatever they want because they
yeah,
can't. Because the
right,
situation sometimes calls for me to say no.
right.
I don't want you to do that or something. But there was something behind it before that was what am I trying to say, Jerry?
Motivate a motive or
Yeah. So there was like I had in my mind a goal, like what I want them to be out here. So in order for them to get to that, I got to do this right now. Do you know?
yeah.
And that's not there anymore. That I got to do this right now so that they can be, yeah. So that's not there anymore.
So what's there instead?
What
Maybe
is there instead?
maybe nothing, but maybe some quality of that nothing. I don't know. I guess I'm putting words in your mouth.
Yeah, I don't know what's there. It's just as the situation comes up. I mean, I don't know. I mean, and
Yeah.
my daughter, she asked me the other day, she was like, Mom, when I'm 16, can I get a tattoo? And I was like, ask me that now that you're 14. And she said, well, can I get a tattoo? I said, no.
Yeah.
I was like, when you're 16, ask me at that time, can I get a tattoo? Because I mean, I was like, I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know. Maybe she will be, maybe she won't. It depends on what I say at that time. I don't know.
Yeah, and that would appear to remove a lot of stress from someone's life too. You don't have to worry about 2 years from now and everything else that's tied to that thought, not just tattoos, but everything else.
Yeah, 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 exactly.
And you don't have to decide now. You don't have to. So
Right.
there's something very efficient about kind of living in the moment, which you appear to be doing.
Mm-hmm. It is very efficient. Very efficient. Yes. So I don't know if I could give parenting advice to anybody about anything.
Well, you
I don't
just did.
know.
You
I
just did.
mean,
I think you just did give advice. So maybe that's the blanket advice to any parent, come from your own truth. Find out what that is.
yeah, absolutely.
So do you feel pretty satisfied with what we've done here?
I do. I'm so glad. I do. I think it's great. I like it. You're a good interviewer, Jerry.
Thanks.
Mhm.
Yeah, this is the best part of it, just sitting there.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you very, very much, Cheryl.
Oh, Jerry.
Oh,
Thank you
oh,
too.
okay. Oh, you don't want to leave, or you got to leave? I know you want to get your day started.
No, I
Why don't
don't want to leave.
you don't want to leave? All right, well then I'll just hang out. I'll just keep the webcam on. I'll just follow you around.
Right. You see me walking back and forth in my kitchen, just doing my stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, cook some southern food or something.
I know, right? Today's a great day for jambalaya. Yeah,
Definitely, I guess.
great day for that.
What do
Yeah.
you put in your jambalaya?
Oh, I put smoked sausage, chicken, and shrimp.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so delicious. So delicious.
And you probably can get good, good sausage out there in DC or around there. Hopefully.
Yeah, it's decent. It's not Louisiana sausage, but it'll do.
Yeah. Well, I'll let you go. I want to thank you very, very much, Cheryl Abram. This was great.
Yes, it was.
Anyway, thank you very, very much. I really enjoyed just being with you.
Thank you, Jerry. I enjoyed it as well. I really did. I've been thinking about this all week. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Couldn't wait to talk to you again.
Pardon? Pardon?
Okay, I couldn't wait to talk to you again.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. No, you just broke up when you said that. Yeah, we'll talk again.
Okay.
I got to come down here to see you. You got to come up here. Well, it'd be easier for me to go there.
I'd love to come to Canada. I really would. Nova Scotia?
Yeah.
You kidding me?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, come on up.
Yeah.
Okay, Cheryl.
All right.
I'll see you.
Okay.
Be in touch
Thanks, Jerry.
later. Bye. Bye, honey.
Bye-bye.